Okay, well, this is a new kind of little vlog I'm going to do. Last night I put up a post where I said, ask me some questions, anything you want to know, and I'm going to answer questions on the vlog. I got this idea from Rosie O'Donnell. I was reading a little article in Entertainment Weekly about celebrity blogs, and they graded various celebrity blogs, including the blog of Rosie O'Donnell, which they gave an A to. They gave that the highest rating. I think, but one of the things that they liked is that she answers questions in vlog form. I think she calls them talkie blogs or something. I am says, there's coincidence for you. I came into this comments section to ask you if, a little over a year and a half after reviewing Kenji Yoshino's covering, the saying, "Don't think so hard, life is not so simple," still resonates, and if you'd still recommend the book. Sure, it was a good book then. What has changed that? Is there anything that would change? I liked his statement, which was a quote from his mother. Well, he's a law professor at Yale, and he wrote a book about struggling with his sexual orientation, and he started out trying to be a poet, and then he went to law school and became a law professor. And at some point, I forget what it was really about, his mother responded to something that he said with, "Don't think so hard, life is not so simple." And I thought that was a really kind of brilliant, cool thing to say, and deceptively simple. Life is not so simple is a simple remark, deceptively so, and it says a lot. In fact, you can't understand life by just thinking really hard. At some point you have to get out and live and respond to your intuitions and your feelings and give yourself a chance to have those things. And just sitting around trying to figure it out all in advance is not going to work, because it's way too complex to figure out if you're not in the middle of trying to do it. You know, there's that saying about, what's that saying about life, that it's like a rehearsal where you never get to do the performance. The whole thing is the rehearsal. You only get to rehearse it once. It's sort of like that. If you think you can rehearse for life before going out and living it, you can't. You have to do it while you're doing it the first time and the only time, which is a good thing, not a bad thing. So yes, I do agree with Kenji Yoshino's mother, and I do think he wrote a pretty darn good book, which is out in paperback now, so why don't you read it? Patty O said, "I'm a little curious about your personal religious views and background. You touch on this topic occasionally, teach a class, I believe, relating to religion." Yes, I teach religion in the Constitution. "And otherwise relate to the topic a bit more than most other popular blogs." Maybe this is too personal, but you did ask what we wanted to know. Okay, yes, I'm very interested in the topic of religion. I'm interested in it as a social, cultural topic, how people live, and include religion in what they do. That's not a religious practice for me. That's about observing how people do things with religion, what religion means to people. It's obviously very important. But yeah, I'm interested in religion. I was brought up, my mother's family was Methodist, and there's even some big Methodist preachers in that line of ancestry from my mother. My mother was not religious, and in fact was fed up with those people with their religion. She had one aunt, I think, that would make them listen to some Bible readings before they could eat breakfast, and she thought that was just terrible, because they were children and they were hungry for breakfast, so why didn't they just give them breakfast? I argued with her about that and said that it was good to put the spiritual before the spiritual nourishment before the physical nourishment, and that was a good lesson. But she didn't get that at all, and she was pretty anti-religion. My father's family were Presbyterians, and we grew up being taken to Presbyterian church. My father was never religious at all, although he was interested in religion. Later we moved to a place where there was an Episcopal priest who was building a church and building his congregation, and he just became friends with, he became friends with everyone in the neighborhood, and he liked to drink, and my father liked to drink, and they would get together and drink. My mother used to talk about the time the two of them drank an entire bottle of Cointreau. My father wasn't really a Cointreau drinker, he was a martini drinker, but for some reason he and this Episcopal priest consumed an entire, let's have an after dinner drink, and they brought out the Cointreau and drank the whole bottle of it. Geez, how many calories is in half a bottle of Cointreau? That's a crazy thing to drink. That's a disgusting amount of sugar, quite aside from the alcohol. But if you want to drink that much alcohol, don't be doing it with Cointreau. That's just disgusting. So anyway, that's how we ended up going to Episcopal Church when we lived in Wilmington, Delaware. So I ended up going to Episcopal Church and getting confirmed. So in the sense that you think of Episcopalians as being a certain social type, that wasn't the case. We started out as Presbyterians, and then just got moved over into the Episcopalian church because of this priest who liked to drink along with my father, and so it was just a sort of a social thing. That wasn't really so much conveyed to me, but they were in the neighborhood. The church this guy was building was a few blocks away, and he was someone my parents liked, so we went to his church. That's a bad reason for picking a religion, isn't it? What if you just went to the religion where you liked the guy the best? That's probably how people get suckered into some of the worst religions, but in this case, it was just Episcopalianism, which is a very inoffensive, mild form of Protestantism. So that was my religious background. As to current beliefs and so on, I never talk about that on the blog, do I? Maybe I should someday, but that's my personal cultural background. And my reason for teaching it in law school is not a matter of personal belief. It's because I like to teach constitutional law, and I find the religion clauses an especially good place to teach constitutional law, because you have the 16 words. They're the first 16 words of the First Amendment to the Constitution, and they contain what can be seen as a contradiction. The two clauses that have potential to conflict with each other, and also, and so it's an interesting question of interpretation. It involves a lot of juicy issues that people care about a lot politically. So I enjoy wrangling with that problem. And I also like it because people usually come to the class with a predisposition, which I think is often, I believe in strong separation of church and state, which I think is a very good way to come to the course. Some people come in thinking, I think there's too much antagonism, too much hostility to religion. And that's maybe the liberal and the conservative bent that you bring to the subject. But once you start actually seeing the problems and the conflicts, you can't really resolve it that easily. And I think that it sort of shakes up people's usual predispositions as they become engaged in what are really interesting interpretive problems. And it makes for a lot of good classroom discussion, a lot of good thinking about constitutional law and how to do it. And people come away with some of their sort of strong positions challenged. It's actually very easy to do with this topic because of the nature of the cases. Chip Ahoy said, hey, Chip Ahoy, those are terrible cookies. Chips Ahoy? Why do people eat Chips Ahoy? Aren't they terrible? They're disgusting. My brother used to eat an entire bag of Chips Ahoy cookies. Even when I ate cookies, I don't eat cookies because I feel like once you open a bag of cookies, what's to stop you from eating one after another? The portion size is just confusing, right? You eat one, you don't know, one is not the right portion. You eat two, then you're into repetitive motion, and you're going to make mistakes. And the only thing that will stop you is completely eating the whole bag. Never. Eat cake. I would recommend cake. Because when you've eaten a slice of cake that you're done eating cake. You're not going to get a second slice of cake. Or if you do, you know you're making a terrible mistake. You can't lie to yourself and say, oh, I'm not done my cake eating. I get to have another piece of cake. You don't get another piece of cake. Cookies, you can lie to yourself and get in a lot of trouble. So I say, for dessert, eat cake, don't eat cookies. Chip Ahoy said, can those flowers up there be eaten? I would say don't eat flowers on my advice, because some flowers really are poisonous. And I don't know, there's a picture of flowers. I have no idea whether to eat them or not. But I think it's nice to have an edible flower. Remember the edible flowers trend of 1990, whatever the hell it was? And so, end of connection. This can't go on forever. And in fact, it's more than 10 minutes. So it's more than more than YouTube will let me put up. But I guess I can break it in half and put both up.